My name is Tom. I am not your speaker this evening. I'm just your host. This is just a quick heads up. I'll be back shortly in about 2 minutes to introduce your speaker for this evening. Thanks.
Unable to access microphone.
Hello, everyone. Once again, my name is Tom. I will be introducing our speaker tonight. His name is Andy Helzer. He has a background as a CPA with a master's in finance. His wife, Maureen, had a background in hotel management. They have 4 kids, and having a business of their own has afforded them the opportunity for Maureen to be a stay-at-home mom and for Andy to leave his corporate career to spend time helping their kids with school and coaching. They are some of the most sought-after speakers currently in our industry. Here's your speaker for tonight, Andy Helzer.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome. We are here live from the HT6 studios. It is April 28th at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, and we're coming at you live. And normally, we'd be in a hotel conducting what you're going through right now is an interview process. And we would normally be in a hotel, whether it's up here in the general Lake Geneva area, like the Grand Geneva Resort and Spa, or in the Gurnee area at the Great Wolf Lodge, or down in the Bloomington Normal area. We usually meet up at the Holiday Inn, which used to be the Radisson. And in fact, these meetings typically are run in about 170 locations all around the country, in person and live. And unfortunately, due to the current situation of COVID-19, we have to practice social distancing. And so we've just adapted and moved our business online. And what's cool is when you own a business and you're an entrepreneur, you can kind of figure things out and just roll with the punches. And I'm going to get more into that tonight. So first of all, I'd like to welcome you out. Second of all, let me lay some ground rules for you. What is tonight? Tonight is what we call an information session. Tonight is where you are going to get some general information from me on the opportunity that we are currently actively building and growing. And so you will probably get about 85, maybe 90% of the information tonight that you would need to make a relatively normal decision of, hey, I like what I'm hearing. I want to keep getting some more information. Or, hey, this isn't for me right now. It doesn't fit into my existing life or the time commitments that I'm willing to make. And either way tonight, it's totally cool. But if you like what you hear and you want to get some more information, the next step to the process would be getting back with the person who invited you out. There's probably right now, about 100 people watching this live webcast, of which about 12 to 14, somewhere in that number, are checking this out for the first or second time through the interview process, the qualifying process. And so If you like what you see, the next step would be to get back with that person who invited you out and spend 45 minutes, maybe an hour, going over some more details. They'll break down the what exactly would I be doing. They'll be breaking down how does the partnership work. They'll be breaking down some of those specifics. Plus, you're probably going to have a bunch of questions coming out of here. That's normal. If you leave this meeting today with, he didn't tell me exactly specifically what exactly every minute of every day would look like, that's not my role tonight. That would be a couple hour conversation. I want to keep this to about 45 minutes to an hour max. And so those are the ground rules. So number one, you're not making any decisions. Let's just sit back, relax, grab a notebook, grab a pencil, grab a bottle of water, and just follow along. The way tonight's going to go is I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and my story, where I'm coming from, how I see things progressing here in this quote unquote new normal, and where I think the industry of e-commerce and online marketing is going over the next couple of years. And so that's my job tonight, is just to share with you a little bit about me, what we're putting together, and basically wrap it up with here's some of the income opportunities that are available in the next 12 to 24 months. And if it's of interest, great, then we'll kind of go from there. So let me tell you a little bit about me. My background is I'm actually an accountant. I'm a CPA. I've got a master's degree in finance. I grew up in the Chicago area, went to school down in Chicago, got my master's degree from another school down in Chicago, and went to work in the corporate world. Met my wife along the way. She was a corporate woman too. She worked in the hotel business, like Tom said. We were just pursuing life. I grew up with the mindset of go to school, get good grades, work hard, 40 years, you can retire. Well, I found myself married with 2 kids, a third one on the way. I had student loan debt, a car payment, a mortgage, and my wife was staying home. And then the government stealing a big chunk right up front called taxes. And so when I was 33, I was making about 110 grand a year. And because of all those scenarios, all those details, my money was disappearing as fast as it came in. And so it wasn't that I was maybe not doing well in the corporate arena. I wasn't doing well economically. It's that I didn't understand one iota about all those other things and how, they're going to eat up your check. And so I was coming from a perspective where I listened to what I would say everybody taught me, specifically my parents, which was get a degree, get a job, get another degree, and work your way up the corporate world, and you'll be taken care of. Well, here's where I was at 33 years old. This was about 11, 12 years ago. I was in a spot where I had more month than I had money. I was in a spot where after 11 years in the corporate arena, I had about $17,000 in my 401k. And this was back in 2008. So as the economy started to dip, maybe I had about 25 to 30 at one point, and it started to downtick. And I was starting to get frustrated. I was frustrated that I didn't have anything extra. I was frustrated that we couldn't really take a family trip once in a while. I was frustrated with, making decisions as my kids started to turn T-ball age and Pee-wee soccer age, that $100 to $200 was a really big deal to invest into some sports. And I just found myself just overall frustrated. I don't know if you can relate to that, but that's where I was at. And so I started asking questions to myself, like, Andy, there's got to be another way. Andy, you've got to find something else. Andy, you've got to figure this thing out. And so what did I do? I decided I was going to try some real estate. I'm sure some of y'all have thought about that too. It seems very sexy, very glamorous, things like that. And I had a handful of properties, and I was generating a couple $100 on each one. But the problem was something always seemed to go wrong. A pipe broke, or somebody didn't pay the rent, or I had to go through an eviction with somebody. And I realized that I'm working my guts out for what? The market started to go back. I started to get rid of a few properties, and I really took a bath financially. And so I'm like, Andy, you need to start asking some questions to people. And I didn't know where to turn. So I said to my wife, I said, honey, I think you're going to have to go back and get a job. I think you're going to have to go back in the corporate arena. And she said, I'm not against that, but there's got to be another way. Let's go talk to my mom and dad. So we sat down with my in-laws, John and Mary. John owned a traditional business for about 30 years, and he did very, very well for himself. And so I sat down with him one day, and I said, John, let me ask you a question. I said, how old were you when you retired? He said, I was 48. He's 71 now, so we're talking, 23, 24 years later. And he said, I was 48 years old. I said, how did you do that? How did you create financial independence? He said, number one, you got to own a business. He said, number two, you've got to have multiple streams of income outside of whatever you're doing full time. He said, number three, you got to develop assets. And he said, Andy, what an asset is something that will generate income for you instead of you generating the income. Meaning, he said, at some point, you got to stop being the machine and find something that will produce like a machine. And I didn't understand what that meant. I didn't really know how to do that. And so I was in a spot where I was looking and asking questions. And I was really in a spot where I was an open book. I'm like, will you teach me how to do that? And what he said was, I can mentor you. I can coach you. I can help you. He said, but I can't do it for you. And so when I started off on a journey, here's what I was really looking for. I was looking for a way that I and my wife could create an extra $1,000, maybe $1,200 a month outside of my full-time income. And if you say, why $1,200? Why $1,000? Because if I sent my wife back to work and we had to get daycare for 3 kids because we were coming due on our third as we were starting this endeavor, I would have, and after tax and all this, I realized $1,200 was about all she was going to take home after taxes and daycare and all that. And that was her going back to work, making a $45,000, $50,000 a year income. And so I realized if I could just make an extra $1,000 to $1,200, I could probably have an opportunity to keep her home and raise the kids. And so I'm not saying that's got to be your reason, but that was my reason. The number one reason why I started in business for myself was to simply keep my wife home and keep my kids out of daycare. It had nothing to do with getting rich. It had nothing to do with being a multimillionaire. It had nothing to do with, I don't know, what maybe some of the stuff that people think owning businesses is or whatnot. And so that's where we started our journey. And my father-in-law actually helped me launch my own online marketing business back in 2008. And because of that, he basically was there with me step by step by step. He held my hand in a sense through the first 30, 60, 90, 120 days until I could get my feet underneath me and really understand what I was trying to do. See, I always had some good ideas. I always had some really unique ways of thinking, but what I didn't have was somebody that was going to help me along the way. And so basically, I'm going to get into my story or to get into the opportunity right now. But before I do, what I'd like to do is I'd like to just give you the brief outline, the overview of what we're doing. And so for me, what I'm going to cover tonight is a case for business ownership. I kind of mentioned that already. I know that most people don't have money to invest. And I also know that most people don't necessarily want to risk a lot because they've got families like I did. They don't want to give up the kids' college funds. They don't want to. I also know that there's a challenge of knowledge and expertise on how to own a business. And that sometimes scares people. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about an opportunity tonight that's very, very low cost and very, very low risk. And what we do is we build networks of people. We drive them online and we help them change their buying habits. When that happens, we help them purchase some very high quality and I'll explain that here in a second. We also have an opportunity to do some networking and we offer mentorship, meaning just like my father was with me every step of the way as I got started, I've been with some of my guys every step of the way as they've gotten started to create their ventures into the world of being an entrepreneur. We have a proven business model. It's completely mobile. As long as you've got a cell phone, you can run your business from anywhere you want. You don't have to be in a building. You don't have to be in a location or in an area. I mean, let's be honest. Look what's happened with COVID. Everybody's working from home, right? People are probably going to continue that. That's going to become more of a new normal for people. Well, in my business, in our business, and the opportunity that we're talking about tonight, we've been completely mobile since we got online back in 1999. And I think it's pretty cool. And so we can bring the opportunity, the business into the environment we love the most. If we want to take a trip for 3 or 4 weeks down to Florida, we can bring our business with us to Florida. If I want to go to my kids' baseball game or football game and do some work before or after the game, I can do that. I don't have to go to the office. It affords me what I call flexibility of time. The business is also scalable, meaning it can be something that you see up front, maybe a couple $100 a month type opportunity that's going to maybe supplement, kind of like I saw it, $1,000 a month supplemental income, but it's also scalable and sustainable long term. to be worth a couple $1 million asset long term. Who knows? There's no guarantee. There's no promise, but it is an opportunity. And so it is scalable to wherever you want it to be, and it is sustainable long term. And then lastly, most importantly, what we have access to is an accredited education program. And this is where I really learned a lot. And I'll get into this in a little bit, but it literally taught me how to go from being an employee thinker, and it developed me into an entrepreneur type thinker. Because I really believe that those are two different things. And the number one thing it taught me was the idea of leaving a legacy. And what you see on your screen now is a picture of my family. That's my wife, Maureen, our 3 boys. This is about 1.5 years old. They are ginormous compared to this. And my middle one is 15. The one on the right is 13. And the one on the left is 10. And then that little baby girl is 3. And so the reason why I do what I do is because I want to leave a legacy. And this organization, the accredited education system, taught me to think long term, not short term. They taught me how to think about the next generation and 2 generations out, and not just about the paycheck on Friday night. And so what these guys helped me do was realize that I could build something. My father-in-law would ask me questions all the time, like, Andy, you got a good job? I said, yes, sir. He said, what makes it good? And I would tell him, insurance and benefits, and time off. And in the winter, I get to go home at 3 o'clock and, all this kind of stuff. And he's like, okay, sounds good to me. He said, but can you sell it? I said, no, sir. He said, can you leave it for your kids? I said, no, sir. He said, then why are you spending literally 50 hours a week, 2,500 hours a year for 40 years? That's 100,000 hours that you're going to be invested into somebody else and have nothing to leave to your kids. You won't have a business. You won't have buildings. You won't have real estate. You won't have assets. You're not going to have what it is you really want to leave. Because he said, Andy, you keep telling me you want to leave something for them. And he said, if you're doing what you're doing and it's not adding up now, why do you think it's going to add up later? And so I tell you that because everything I do, every decision I make, number one, is to make sure that my wife is taken care of no matter what. And number 2, that my kids have an opportunity to take over a family legacy. You've all heard that phrase, we all have a born date, we all have a death date, and it's the hyphen in between, what's it going to stand for? I did not want my hyphen to stand for 40 years of fake air, fake light, and fake friendships in the corporate world. There's nothing wrong with it. It paid me well. But it didn't give me any ownership. Therefore, it didn't give me any control. And what I was really looking for was to control my time and my money. And so as we jump into this, what I was really exposed to for the first time ever, and I'm sure some of you guys would agree with this because I had never seen anything like this before, was my father-in-law said, Andy, that there's really 2 different ways of making money. He said, Andy, there's active income, which is what you do. It's how you create income at work. Is you're an employee. You sell time for money. He said, when you tried to go and become a consultant, you became a contract laborer or sole proprietor. He said, Andy, what I owned was a manufacturing facility. I was a small business. And he said, the problem with those ways of making money is it's 100% based on you and you showing up. He said, there's nothing there that's going to continue on for years. He said on the other side is what's called asset generating income. It's things like traditional businesses, network marketing, real estate investments, restaurant franchises, oil wells, intellectual property, things like that, investments, money markets. And he said, the key to life, Andy, is to create enough asset generating income that exceeds your lifestyle expense. You never have to work a job again the rest of your life. He said, Andy, for me, what I did was I spent about 15, 16, 17 years of my life building assets. He said, after about 11 or 12 years, it got me financially independent. And then I continued to solidify that afterwards. He said, once the money on the right-hand side was bigger than the outflow of my life, he said, I didn't need my factory. I didn't need my job. I didn't need that opportunity anymore. And he said, 90% of the money, 90% of the wealth in America is controlled by 10% of the people on the right-hand side that own the assets. He said 10 to 15% of the money is controlled by 80 to 90% of the people. And he said the question is, at the end of the day, long term, where do you want to be? Do you want to be on the right, few people, a lot of wealth, or on the left, a lot of people, everybody I knew with a little bit of wealth? And I said, obviously, I want to be on the right. And so what he did was he started to explain to me on how to start my own business, how to get into the idea of online marketing. And so what we're doing is we're actually partnered up with two companies. I'm going to explain both of them here as I go through this. Number one, we're partnered with an organization or a company or corporation called Amway. Amway's been around since 1959, about 61 years. And what they are is they're a major corporation that manufactures some very high quality exclusive products. And I'm going to explain this here in a second. They're high quality, they're consumable, they're repetitive. Most of these brands have been around for a long time, and they all got 100% money back guarantee for 180 days. So some of these products, I'll kind of explain to you here. And so one of the product lines that we represent is a brand called XS. XS is a sports nutrition brand. They've got some pre-workout, post-workout type stuff, but where their big niche is in the energy drink market. In fact, XS Energy Drink does about $500 million a year in revenues. It is the second largest selling energy drink company in the world, and it's loaded with vitamins. It's good for you. There's no carbs, no sugar. Comes with in 19 different flavors, but it's a very, very good for you energy drink. It's loaded with B12, B6, B5, which is good for the brain, and it also allows you to create focus, and they're good micronutrients for the body. Okay. The XS also just came out with a CBD oil. Now, let me explain something here. Let me give you an example. Where I live in southeastern Wisconsin, I can drive down the major highway over here, Highway 50, and I can find at least 4, maybe 5 different storefronts that all offer CBD. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what CBD was. I had no idea what it did or how it worked or anything. But I started seeing these companies have get your CBD here and blah, blah, blah. What I started to think about was all those people had to buy storefronts, they had to lease things, they had some risk, they had to have inventory, they had to buy products, they had to sell stuff over the shelf, they had to spend time in those stores or hire people and have employees, whatever the case may be. See, when XS launched this product back in November, we already had a network of probably about 3,000 to 4,000 people. And when this product dropped into the network, certain people found value in it and they bought it. Not everybody. But what it did was it allowed me to start to learn too about the product, because as my income went up, because people were now buying this new product launch, I realized that I didn't have any overhead. I don't have any employees. I don't have a distribution center. I don't need a storefront. What I had was a network. And I'll explain that here in a second. But I say that because I want you to understand that I'm not trying to sell these products. These products get consumed through a network. Okay. Now, we also partner up with Amway, and they manufacture a home care line. And the home care line is things like laundry detergent, fabric softener that are all green. They're all natural. They got multi-purpose cleaners, surface cleaners, all kinds of stuff. They also manufacture a brand called Pursue. And Pursue is a hospital-grade disinfectant. And the hospital-grade disinfectant for us has been a really big seller during the last 6 or 7 weeks that we've all been on lockdown and safer at home. And so there's always things, because there's such a wide variety, there's always things that in certain situations rise to the top, right? And so they've got everyday consumables, they got some specialty quality type stuff, but it's all very, very high level and high quality. We also partner up with the Nutrilite brand. Nutrilite is the largest vitamin supplement brand in the world. It's been around over 85 years. It does over $5 billion with a B dollars in revenue every single year. If you took GNC and the Vitamin Shop and put those two companies together, Nutrilite's doing over $2 billion a year more in gross revenues than those two companies combined. And we have no storefronts, we have no overhead, we have no inventory, we have no employees from that standpoint. How cool is that? That means there's a lot of profit margin available. Nutrilite is also the only company that I've ever known of that controls the whole process from planting the seed in organic farms to producing the supplement. the whole process. I don't know of any other companies that do that, but they own over 6,000 acres out in California where they have a certified organic farm and all kinds of stuff. So it's high quality. They specialize in some foundational type vitamins and supplements, like your basic multivitamins, plant-based proteins, chewable vegetables, omega-3s, things like that. They also focus on targeted areas. So, for example, during this recent 6 or 7 weeks, one of the big target areas has been immunity. In fact, just I think it was last week or maybe 10 days ago, they just launched an organic immunity gummy loaded with elderberry and zinc and vitamin C and all this kind of stuff. And so they just launched this new product in the middle of a pandemic. I think it's genius, especially because it's exactly what the world needs is immunity system boost. Now, they've got some immunity packs that you can take, but the millennials love these gummies. They're low cost. They are great for the young millennial, for people 13 to about 25, 30 years old. Obviously, I take them. I'm not 30. But the idea is it's a target market. It's amazing. And again, when these things dropped, over $4,000 or $5,000 worth of product sales happened in our business, and we created additional income because we built a network. Now, there's also some convenience vitamins and products. They also utilize a healthy living app. They've developed a bunch of different apps like Body Key and things like that. Very, very cool. But we can get more into that later. We also partner up with a cosmetic and skincare company called Artistry. Artistry is a $1 billion skincare brand. It's up there with Lancome, Shiseido, Estee Lauder, Clinique, and Artistry. It's one of the top 5 prestige brands in the world. Like I said, it's a $1 billion company. It's been around since 1968. And what Artistry is it is literally money. And I mean that seriously. Because what I find is that most people, most women specifically, me too as a man, we use skincare in the morning. We put skincare on at night. Then obviously women use cosmetics in the morning. They touch it up in the afternoon. They use some sort of cosmetic remover in the evening, and they kind of go through that process. And so there's a lot of money in these consumable markets, specifically the skincare and cosmetic line. And I love it. Amway is also partnered up with about 150 major retailers. So we do what's called affiliate marketing. And so I usually ask people at this point, do you believe the internet's getting bigger? Do you believe more people are buying online? And do you think that's going to continue? And especially in the last 6 or 7 weeks, that's the only way to get anything is you got to order ahead, curbside pickup, call ahead, curbside pickup, deliveries are, whatever. And so I believe wholeheartedly that these companies have come to us over the years because we have a massive network. Amway does. They have over 3 million eyeballs that are focused on the internet. And so what does that mean? That means Nike wants to do more business online, and it's better for them to do it through Amway than it is to do it through a traditional medium. Same thing for Disney. Same thing for Under Armour and Bass Pro Shop. Well, what does that mean? It means that these guys are paying money in advertising. We call it pay and pray advertising. Newspaper ads, billboards, pop-ups, etc. And they don't even have a guaranteed return on investment, but usually it's somewhere between 4 and 12%. But when they do business with us, they don't pay us anything unless a product is bought or sold, so their return on investment is 100%. Now, the profitability for these product brands right here is a little bit less than the product brands that I was talking to you about before, because here we go warehouse to consumer. With those other brands that Amway manufactures, it's retailer to consumer. So there's a much bigger profit margin over there. And a lot of those products are consumable repetitive, which means you have to buy it, use it, and buy it again. And if you want to create asset generating income, you got to have something happening over and over and over again in order to create income. So let me just tell you real quick a little bit about Amway. Amway's been around, like I said, since 1959. They're a family-owned company. They've never missed a bonus check. They're the number 1 direct selling company in the world for, I believe this is our 8th or 9th year in a row. They have a 100% money back guarantee for 180 days on every product they manufacture. Try getting that at your local retailer. It doesn't exist. And then lastly, they've got an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Now, what does all that mean? It means that Amway's a really good corporation. What they do is they supply me and my team goods and services, and we get to plug into their compensation plan. They reward us for things, products moving through their website. And I'll touch on that here in a second. However, if you want to get started in business for yourself with the Amway Corporation as your supplier, as your backbone, and be a part of their compensation plan, it does cost about $62. And then it's $62 a year to stay in business for yourself with Amway. And you're a 1099 contractor, et cetera, et cetera. You don't work for Amway. I don't work for Amway. In fact, if I showed you my tax return, it has nothing to do with Amway. It's called Andy and Maureen, business, that kind of thing. We own our own business, okay? Now, when you do get registered, what we want you to do is get what's called an optional welcome bundle. You don't have to, but it's your best chance to get off to a good start. And what it's going to do is it's going to give you about $250 worth of retail products. These products are going to be some things that you want to use yourself, some things you want to sample out to some people you know, and see if you can generate just some interest. There's some sample bags, there's catalogs, etc. Now, typically to get yourself registered, launched, and in business, it'll run you right around $180 with some tax and shipping. I know this slide says $165 with an asterisk because it says plus a little bit of shipping and tax. So I usually tell people it's about $180, $182, somewhere in that ballpark, depending on which state you live in. Okay. Now, the second business that we're a part of, that we're partnered up with, is an organization called Leadership Team Development. Leadership Team Development is an accredited support and training system. Amway partners up with a number of different companies, but LTD is by far the biggest, fastest growing organization as part of the Amway Amway's accredited business program. And so what these guys do is this is the roadmap for success. What they offer is the product education, the selling techniques, how to get the products into the market. I call it the go-to-market strategies. They offer step-by-step curriculum to enhance your business building skills. In fact, we just had a really unique opportunity this past weekend to do about a 12 to 13 hour online training. It was a live stream event, high quality, really cool. We heard from some of the top people in our industry that are working with the Amway Corporation and LTD, and it was cool. I got it from the comfort of my home. And these seminars and conferences is where I've learned the basic building blocks of how to build a business, right? It's kind of like Legos, right? You gotta start with one piece at a time and just start to put your castle together, your car together, your home together, right? They also offer online and mobile productivity tools, meaning they've got podcasts, they've got audio books, live books, things like that you can gain access to that are completely 100% on your phone that you can take with you and you can constantly be learning. I know for me, I love to learn. I wasn't that way when I was 22, 23 coming out of college. I'm like, I'm never wanting to learn another thing again. But what I've realized is that leaders are readers. If I'm not learning, I'm dying. If I'm not growing, I'm going backwards. If I'm not advancing, people are